I'm Jerry Alexander. At this present time, I am the last person to fire or run the Reno. Back in '72, I believe it was, I was invited out with the then Reno crew of Gene Smith, Mel Butler, and Herschel Blanton to be their stand-in, to be their extra board. I went to Ajo where they were doing a movie with Burt Reynolds and Sarah Miles. Over the years, I was invited to, not invited, it was my job to fill in for any of the people that took off. So that was my extent of the Reno until Herschel Blanton retired. Then I became the brakeman. And then when Gene Smith was no longer there, I became the fireman. That would have been in the 80s, early 80s. And then we would do different movies. We would take the Reno maybe to Seminole, I know twice, to the yard up there. We did the movie, the woman, let's see. Man Who Loved Tap Dancing? No, that was down at Ajo. The movie was Butch Cassidy and Sundance Woman. Catherine Ross was Etta Place. She played Etta Place. And I know one day during that film, I was in one of the coach cars. They were filming in the one ahead of that, and I'm sitting there taking a break. I'm probably 27 or 8 years old, and Catherine Ross comes in and sees me sitting in her chair, which didn't go well. She spun on her heels and took off, and the little guy that was her assistant told me that I should not be sitting in her chair, so I never did that again. But watching the movie people was really, really interesting, especially the prop people. Of course, all the directors, they want more smoke, more smoke. And as you know, that more smoke means you're just flooding it with fuel because it had, of course, been converted to oil at that time. The Reno was actually a wood burner to begin with, but we would even sand the flues under their direction when they wanted even that much more smoke. Reno was a great engine. It was a typical little American engine. It just smelled good. It was fun, and I appreciate those three men that taught me how to run that engine. That I would have paid more attention that if I'd have known what it was going to mean to me in this day and age. But you know, I'm in my 20s, so these are the things I was looking at. So, but anyway, I'm glad the Reno went home. That's where it belongs. Tom Gray's got that thing now. So I'm assuming that, in fact, he told me, I asked him if he was going to have it done in a couple of years, and he said, no, it's going to be probably 7 or 8 years, and that I should stay healthy if I want to run it again. So.
Did any famous actors ride with you on the Reno?
Yes, probably my favorite was little Melissa Gilbert. She was actually knee-high at the time. She was a young woman during, we were doing a Little House on the Prairie episode. I forget the year, probably in '82, I don't remember. And then, of course, Gene Smith was he was a historian and a PR man, because he would always get the cameraman to come around. He would coordinate between the cameraman and the actor on the movie set, the star of the movie set, and he would coordinate a picture for the crew and the actor. Of course, I think I never did work with Gene Smith missing, because he was always there. So consequently, I don't think I ever got my picture with one of the movie stars, but that's okay. Melvin Butler, which is my hero, I will call him, because he wanted people, and your legacy is when you share your knowledge with people. People don't forget that. So he was the guy that I really enjoyed being around the most on the Reno. As far as the actors climbing up on the engine, they would climb up and look, but I don't ever recall riding one up and down the track. Maybe I just don't remember, but I don't seem to remember that.
Did the Reno sound in time?
It did to me, because, I wasn't that mechanical at the time about how a steam engine really worked. It always sounded good to me. The worst part about that I remember and hearing Melvin say is we're cutting the tires, the flanges off of these tires, going around. Old Tucson had 700 feet of track, and of course it was full of curves so that they could get different angles of shots. So I can remember a lot of squeaking and squealing, and I know that those flanges were being cut pretty heavy, but the engine always sounded good to me. When we take it out on we took it to Putnam, which is on the San Manuel branch down at the bottom of the hill, it seemed to maybe walk a little. And I'm talking about, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, timing, but it would kind of walk back and forth at a certain speed. Nothing bad, just you could feel it. So I guess that's all I know about that, Taylor.
Have any photos or paperwork of the Reno?
No, I found one old pay stub is all that I found. That was not, and to this day I don't take photos and document things like I should have. Sorry, I didn't take any pictures. So
that's why we're doing this now.
That's why we're doing this now. Taylor wants to know. I think, well, I did have a picture. I don't know where it's at, but I remember my wife took a picture of me on the Reno. We were doing some little movie set out there, but I don't even remember the year it was. So I know that I hadn't been married long when we did Most Wanted Woman. I believe that was the movie with Catherine Ross. I can't remember. I think that was done in the late 70s, and I married in 75. So, yeah, that's about all I know about that, Taylor.
Tell us about the different locations you were with at the Reno at.
Oh yeah, the different locations. The first time I was invited to Ajo to watch them film from Ajo to Gila Bend on the TC&GB Railroad. Burt Reynolds and Sarah Miles, and I think I don't remember the name of the movie. Maybe it was Man Who Loved Camp Dancing. I just can't remember. But anyway, that was a fun movie. That was probably the longest amount of track we got to run that old engine on. we went to Seminole twice, I believe, and then they shipped it to Magma on the let's see, what is that? I can't think of the name of that little railroad that come down Superior Railroad. They did a movie there, and then they did some of it actually on the Hayden Branch. I'm surprised the Southern Pacific let them, but they did. And I come close to getting sent up there as a brakeman for the Southern Pacific. Frank Gaycon got sent up there, best I remember. I think a guy named, I can't think of his name right now. On the movie Posse, that's the one they did up on that branch. I just can't think of his name right now. He is still alive. He was an engineer out of Phoenix. Just drawing a blank. That's about all that I can remember as far as shipping it anywhere, because Tucson Transfer and Warehouse would bring a crane and their truck out, and they would, of course, we would take the bell, we would take the stack, the whistle, the pop-off valve, we would take all of that off for them to transport that locomotive. And they were really pretty good. They did that quite a bit. We're down at the museum now, and Taylor's getting nervous about all the noise, the background noise, but that's okay. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Bad just seeing people turn away. You know?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, that was, like I say, Ajo in '72, I believe it was the first time, and that's where I got assigned to be the extra board, and then the rest of it, like I say, I didn't keep any documentations. It was just something I just didn't keep any documents. But
so tell us about Reno's last day under steam.
Well, it was a normal day. For the crew, it was not really boring, but you had to be ready to go whenever the director wanted you to move. So we were doing a Dial soap commercial. And it was getting on, I'm thinking about 4 o'clock, because it was almost time to quit. The engineer, Melvin Butler, opened the firebox, and of course they were always looking in the firebox. I'm assuming that's from training in their old days, that you needed to know what's going on in there. Anyway, Melvin says, "We've got a crack." And I look in the firebox, and we've got an 18-inch crack over on my side of the engine. And I asked him, "Do you want me to shut the fire off?" And he says, "No, it'll be all right. It'll swell back up when we put a big fire in it." And I go, "Melvin, you know," at the time I was probably, I don't know, in my late 30s, early 40s. I said, "Melvin, I've got a wife and 3 kids, a good job on the railroad, and a business, and I don't want to die on this whole thing." And he said, "You know, I don't either. Put the fire out." Probably the reason he was hesitant was because Bob Shelton and he were friends. And when Bob come up, I just told him, I said, "This engine doesn't have soft plugs. It's got a lot of questionable things that's been done to it. Call the boiler inspector. If he says it's okay to run it in the morning, we'll run it, happily run it, because it's almost quitting time anyway." So he agreed to that. And of course, when the boiler inspector come out and looked at it, he says, "Don't run this engine no more," which whether the soft plugs would have had anything to do with it or not, because I told Bob, I said, this thing is, if it blows up, it's going to kill everybody probably within a couple of 100 feet of it. And then it might not have, because we only ran 110 pounds of pressure on that engine. It was cut back from, I believe it was originally 140 or 50, somewhere up in that area. But it was plenty to do what we did with that locomotive. So anyway, I'm hoping Tom gets it fixed. I'm looking forward to run that engine again. I'm going to have to come up and see what's going on, hopefully this spring, because my daughter lives in, she just moved to Monterey, which it won't be out of the way to swing by and see the old girl again.
What do you know about the Reno's conversion to air?
Melvin come to my shop. I had a bumper shop, and he wanted to know if I wanted to help convert this Reno to air, and I told him compressed air, it would just be sacrilegious to me to watch that old engine work on compressed air. It wouldn't smell good no more. It wouldn't have the sounds that, and I'm talking about the air pump, that it just, I wanted nothing to do with it. And then the brakeman, on the day that we cracked the crown sheet, or we didn't do it, old age I think did it, but the day the crown sheet cracked was Herman Blythe. He was the brakeman. So they got Herman Blythe, which was a former Southern Pacific roundhouse foreman that had worked with steam. He hired out in the 40s. So he converted it. He knew all the things to do to convert it. They really kind of desecrated the engine. They took it apart and just made it just a shell. It was no longer a steam locomotive. And then after that, they actually wanted to tour, and they did tour. I believe it was Holland, Switzerland. And Melvin come to the shop and wanted to know if I wanted to go with it. And I said, no, I can't. I've got a business. I'm working in the yard on the switch engine. I just said, I can't do it. And of course my wife is sitting there kicking my shins because she wants to go in that part of the world. Her people was actually from Switzerland. So I just couldn't do it. And at the time, Melvin said, I really don't need to go either because Jenny's sick. That was his wife. She was really sick with cancer. These railroaders just get in the way. But anyway, yeah, it's. I'm really excited that they got to go home. I think Tom will make that to where it will be something to see for the next 130 or 40 years. So I know the first time I saw it, it was made in 1872, and I saw it in 1972, first time. Almost 100 years exactly. So I got to watch it for almost 50 years. So a lot of it wasn't good to see what happened to it, but I'm really thinking that Tom will make it what it should have been. And I'm just glad it got to go home.